So this is the piece that will appear in the middle, about 2 minutes in. So this piece is 9 minutes long. I won't play the whole thing. It's divided more or less into 2 sections in a coda. And this is what David told me about it, which maybe he wants to modify. And it's with, as I say, with Dogen. So he says about so-called. He made the beat out of somebody cross-country skiing, Hasidim from somewhere. He puts this on and I start jamming. He calls out, traditional tune. We started to think of a structure. Guitar player starts adding a little something. Bass player starts reacting. Accordion player. Will is playing regular husadol. The husadol is that beat that's in there. But now he plays pad chords and he started adding harmonic things to it. This sounds very spontaneous and amorphous, but Krakauer quickly refutes that impression by saying, I tend to want to have a formal structure. It scares me not to have a formal structure. The first section of turntable pounding is a kind of exposition of basic resources. The sampled Hasidim in a cantor, a strong hip-hop beat, Krakauer's entrance, and playing the terrace tune. So this is about 2.5 minutes, and you'll see how this piece works. This is in Krakow, Poland. You can hear the violin, the bass guitar. The accordion. Here's the tune. Ya da 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 da. Ya da 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 dee da dee da. As you can hear, some other things are going to happen now for the next 5 minutes and 37 seconds of the piece. If I were doing this with a class, I would try to pick apart all the elements here. Why is that backup beat sort of a tambourine sound with the jingles? Is it a MIDI reference, or what is that doing? What is the guitar is playing almost a clave rhythm, a Latin rhythm there. Um, the violin is, why is it syncopated and looped in that particular way? The accordion goes from a more dissonant to a kind of more conventional backup on the chords. As this piece moves, it shifts all the time. It keeps morphing and going on, even though eventually you'll see there's sort of an overall structure. But what, again, makes music so interesting is trying to figure out what is that set of resources? What is the specific eclecticism of this piece? You know, I can't really run through that. I should point out this is being played in Krakow, and he is Krakauer. That's his family. That's heritage. He's bringing music back home at some level, but there's nothing really Polish about this and the origins of this music. It comes coming as a kind of American import. The ambiguity of musical ownership and circulation permeates the whole klezmer revitalization period of the last 30 years. And there's definitely a kind of heritage strategy. At the same time, there's this kind of avant-gardism. I can hear kind of some resonance of that Zorn, crazy Zorn thing with that beginning cantor here in this thing. And what we're talking about is the overlapping of many different eclectic visions. Okay, Krakauer's many-sidedness is very different from Will's or Josh Dolgen's or the other members of the band. Nicky Parrott, whom you're going to hear tonight, who plays bass. But they've come together to produce the most identifiable of unified musical products, the album. And all these people bring their multiple selves to this table, okay, this table that they're basing this on. So without playing more of this, because I really just want you to listen tonight, and you won't hear anything like this tonight because he doesn't have the whole band, and he doesn't have Dolgen and so forth. All I can say is that the Eclectic will continue to thrive among performers whose origins are Jewish and non-Jewish, who can draw on an unlimited set of musical sources, whose drive for personal identity is both deeply American at the same time and exportable too, and whose creativity often overlaps with a strong heritage sensibility that characterizes so much of world music today. Is this Jewish music? The answer is no more clear now than it has been in any period of music history. Thank you and enjoy the concert. So if you have any...
This piece sounds like background music in an Arabian bazaar with Michael Douglas running down the street.
Okay, that's your take. Does anybody else in the room hear an Arabian bazaar with Michael Douglas? Maybe not. You're all entitled to it, though. He's entitled to that. I can't say, what? You know, there's no way I can do that, okay? That's perfectly reasonable reading of this piece, okay?
From the uninitiated point of view.
Everybody's uninitiated, okay? What about these people in the Krakow nightclub? They're less initiated than you, I expect. The point is that you've got all these people doing this work, and we don't know what their agendas are. Maybe that's one of their agendas, to sound like a movie soundtrack. I don't really think so, but you can hear it that way. It's all open to that. It's open to these kinds, because we have our own eclecticism. You're bringing an interesting eclecticism to that. What is an Arabic bazaar? You know, why Michael Douglas? What is your set of resources? You know, that you bring as an imaginatively when you hear a piece of music. It's all very, very individual. So this is a problem within heritage stuff and stuff you want to call, is this Jewish? Because who were we talking about? We are all very different, eclectically constructed individuals these days, and getting more so all the time.
Is there any written music, klezmer or otherwise, Yiddish folk music that is earlier than around 1880 in the United States? None of it from Europe survived?
Nope. The first collection of Yiddish folk songs is 1901 in St. Petersburg. It doesn't have any melody, tunes, it just has texts. Cantorial music, yes, there are cantorial editions printed that we can find even from around 1800. Nobody want to write this stuff down until you get sound recording, and you get people interested. And because Yiddish culture had no value, too, for the people that studied Jewish history. It was just considered, Yiddish was called jargon. It didn't have the status of a language, even. And everybody, I mean, had no prestige value, this stuff that these people were doing. So eventually they had a nostalgia and heritage move around 1900 on for stuff that came from the folk. They picked this up from European folklorism and other such things. And they want to go to villages and write down things, but they don't write down melodies. They write down texts because it's a text-driven tradition. So the thing is, you want to get texts. Which songs?
Well, the one that you just played now.
The piece I just played?
Yeah.
Oh, that piece. Well, he explained how he did it. Yeah, they're used to playing together. So, and he likes people in the band that are improvisers. So, yes, there's a certain amount of improv involved. But once they got that piece down, if he were playing turntable pounding tonight, it would be a piece that he does. And he would play it pretty much the way he's done it before. For example, he's going to play a Gosnigan tonight, which is a piece that I used actually in Fiddler on the Move, his version of it in the last chapter. That's a traditional klezmer tune that he has his wonderful own arrangement of, David. When I've heard David play his arrangement of that, he plays it pretty much the same way. He has an idea of the structure. It has an arch form. It starts very low. It gets to a high level of intensity, and then it dies back down at the end. The drummer does stuff. But the drummer isn't going to do the same thing every time. And the guitarist and Will won't do the same thing every time. They have a basic understanding of how that piece goes. But then, they'll make it a little different, which is just what Dave Terrace did. We're stuck with the fact that Dave Terrace made this object, this record. We've got that object. It sounds the same way every time. That's not what Dave Terrace did. He never would have played the same thing twice. Because a premium was put on being inventive and versatile, and creative, as musicians like to be. So, yeah, there were very fixed things going on. But even with recorded pieces like this, they'll play it differently. They don't have that same tradition of hereditary instrumental families of musicians the same. That the word klezmer is a Yiddish word, and it's a typically Yiddish word because it's based on two Hebrew roots, but the word doesn't exist in Hebrew. It's based on clay and zemra, and there's no such word in Hebrew. But so the creativity of Yiddish is to take these roots and make something out of it. You had that figure had different names in earlier centuries. In the German lands, they're called Spielmann. You have Musikant. You have a whole bunch of other kinds of words for people doing that job. Klezmer as a term, some people think is sort of an 18th century word in southeastern Europe, but it's kind of hard to say. Again, we don't have much writing about this. It's hard to know the origins of the terms even. But you see this in families. You feel, and people called Musikant or Zimbalist. There's like the Zimbalist family. It was a famous violinist and other. That's a cymbalist. That's a guy playing the cymbal. That's what it is. It's a cymbalist. And we call that the cymbalum in English, that instrument. So, you see traces of this in some of the musiker is a name, a musica, a family name. You see it in family names. Guys were called Beryl Bass, Beryl the bass player. So it's a very Yiddish culture kind of thing, but it goes back a long ways into German territory, Middle Ages. What you find is town councils in Prague or Frankfurt talking about how to keep the Jewish musicians away from competing with Christian musicians, or saying that Jewish weddings shouldn't make any noise on Christian feast days. And we get stuff like this, which are indirect references to what was going on. Or rabbinic things, saying it's not allowed to play for Christian weddings or something like this. We get it in sort of negative ways, but we know there was a lot of music going on. We just don't know much about it.
I'll ask another question.
Yeah, sure.
Was there much adaptation of klezmer music that you found in the 20s, 30s, and 40s that was going on in the Brill Building in
No.
New York City?
No.
They were
black music. They're imitating black rock, rhythm and blues, and the last thing they want to do is sound ethnic. And this is a long running argument I have. There are people that go around giving all these lectures about how, since every American songwriter was Jewish in the 20th century, except Cole Porter, therefore all this music must somehow be Jewish. It flies in the face of reality. What were these people doing? They were getting away from their roots. They were going to the mainstream, and they were writing stuff that all America would sing. Why would they want it to sound ethnic? That'd be crazy. You know, if on the face of it, it doesn't make sense. Why would Irving Berlin write White Christmas, you know, if he's writing as a Jewish musician? And Easter Parade, you know, and why would that sound Jewish? I just find it a wacky argument, but it's widely accepted in many circles that, you know, all those songs are somehow Jewish because these guys were all Jewish. You know, so no, the same kids, I mean, these Neil Sedaka, I mean, whatever, why would they be writing something sounding Jewish if they were trying to appeal to American teenagers? It just doesn't make sense. Their heroes were the doo-wop singers on the street corners, and we were black. Okay. And the rhythm and blues guys. Okay, sir.
Equal or axially symmetrical segments. And on the left side, you see 6 equal segments around the outside zodiacal circle. On the right side, they're not quite equal, but they are axially symmetrical, which is, again, not at all what you need, nor what you see in this. Further errors such as misplacements of one or more of the numbers for the days in each season appear in these 2 diagrams as well. We even find here the association of the wrong number of zodiacal signs with a seasonal number. The scribes and scholars associated with these diagrams noted neither the critical importance of the angles between intersecting diameters nor the significance of the distribution of zodiacal arcs. What we find in these 2 diagrams are, again, the phrase I used before and would like to emphasize, an assembly of the elements of Chalcidius explanation, but not a Chalcidian construction. Let me turn to a second group of medieval diagrams, which presented an alternative construction of Chalcidius explanatory diagram. This group has at least one remarkable commonality in showing a second circle added inside the encompassing zodiacal circle. And so you see here another circle which has no labels on it. We may tend to see no purpose for this second circle, but its meaning does derive directly from the text of Chalcidius, who wrote that there were 3 options for the sun's circle with respect to the Earth at the point theta. Chalcidius suggests locating theta, the Earth, within, along, or outside the circle of the sun. The third possibility he sets aside for later consideration. The first option actually is the circle, the first circle we had, EZHK, in the diagram, that labeled circle. The middle choice, which he mentions as an option, places the Earth at the point theta along or near the sun's path. This is the unlabeled second circle in the group, in the diagrams of this group. As the text says at this point, it's impossible for the sun to pass through theta, for earthly things would burn up from the powers of the sun, and with the body of the sun always above us, there would be constant day, never night, for the sun would never set. So far, actually, this group of diagrams doesn't show incomprehension of the text, and at least might lead to a correct diagram. Another common feature of this group is its focus of attention on the constant, unchanged speed of the sun as it moves around its circle, EZHK. This appears in the symmetry of the divisions of the solar circle. Unfortunately, this appropriate focus on the solar circle is combined with the displacement of the intersection of the two perpendicular zodiacal diameters to M, so that this intersection point here, which should be at the Earth in the center, has somehow moved up to this new point M, which is not where it should be. A position quite removed from the center of the zodiacal circle. To gain a clearer perspective on this group 2 diagram, I want to look at its best representative, the image in the following figure. And here you see a similar kind of image. The second circle again, the point M as the point there at the center. It comes from the best manuscript of Abbo of Fleury's Computus around 1004, containing a number of well-selected excerpts and diagrams from the text of Chalcidius. The copy made corrections to the diagram for the seasons shows a pretty sure sense of what was to be represented. Labels were given to the diagram for the seasons, the 4 seasons of the year, that is the Divisiones Anni. Let's see, and I want to use here you see that same diagram on the right and the previous descriptive diagram on the left. And also that the Earth is next center of the solar circle, the other diagram, for the explanation. The excerpt presented is a complete and correct rendition of Chalcidius' text. The label on the diagram shows us a different focus, like a marginal rubric to a text. The label for the explanatory diagram directs a reader to the most obvious new element in passing from a description to an explanation. That is, the focus upon the Earth being eccentric in the sun's circle. What happens in this diagram? It doesn't fit our expectations, but it did all of the following. It preserved the constancy of celestial motions, that is, uniform solar speed. It held the Earth central in the zodiacal circle and eccentric within the solar circle. The diagram lays out the signs to show that each equal interval in the sun's circle was projected onto the zodiac so as to create the appearance of changing speed. This new model in the tradition of Chalcidian diagrams is primarily and still a computist's diagram. First, it was constructed from a non-relativist and metrical solar viewpoint, rather than from the perspectival earthbound view, which was Chalcidius' position. Second, the shrinkage and expansion of different zodiacal signs along the circle, alpha, beta, gamma, delta, demolished the intention of Chalcidius to give a clearly geometrical argument in accounting for the variations in the lengths of the seasons. This diagram in Abbo of Fleury's work depended on the reader's prior knowledge that the signs are 12 equal parts of the zodiac and didn't show this visually or geometrically. The model depended on the presence of the names of the signs rather than simply on the structure of the diagram. A computist would notice the number of days, and only the arithmetical comparison of numbers of days in the sections of the diagram allows a reader to make unambiguous sense of the diagram. The designer of this diagram did not fully comprehend the geometrical astronomical model of Chalcidius. The designer didn't appreciate the nature of the geometrical argument. That this story of Chalcidius' text and diagrams was not a monumentally uniform story is clear from the diversity of diagrams, and there is at least one more diagram to consider very briefly, a manuscript diagram of the late 9th century from the city of Reims, the Cathedral of Reims. Which does come the closest of all of the pre-11th century diagrams to a correct Chalcidian pattern. This figure raises questions, not all of which could be answered, or at least answered at this time. to be brief, what I would conclude is that this figure, which shows us corrections made by a 10th century scholar, almost attained Chalcidius goal, because what you see is an older form with this circle, this older circle, which is partly eradicated, central, and it has been moved up in order to make an eccentric circle around the Earth, working towards